It's been tough, but from now on, you deserve to be happy. I want to be the one to make you happy. Is that okay?
A few years after the parents of the person I thought I'd marry looked down on my family background and caused our breakup, someone appeared who told me, "I want to make you happy." I decided to trust his gentle and calm nature, but his love turned out to be a little twisted. My name is Chloe. I am 31 years old. I run a small import goods shop in Brooklyn with my friend Megan. The store is tucked away in an alley a little off from the main tourist spots. Originally, it was a small shop where Megan's grandmother sold everyday goods and cigarettes. When her grandmother decided to close the store due to old age, Megan, her granddaughter, said, "I want to run an import goods shop," and took it over. I met Megan, who's 2 years older than me, at a language school, and we became close friends.
Hey, Chloe, why don't we run an import goods shop together?
When she asked me that, I casually said, "Okay." That was 10 years ago. When we first started the shop, we displayed European trinkets and antiques, such as vintage tableware and decorations. However, over time, handmade crafts, fabrics, and accessories from various Asian countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam became our main focus. Given Brooklyn's local vibe, reasonably priced, everyday items got a much better response from customers than stylish, high-end products. Plus, it's easier to source these items during our trips abroad. Above all, the low cost of goods is a huge appeal. We also started offering American-style goods aimed at foreign tourists, which gave the store a rather chaotic vibe overall. While the shop never made huge profits, we earned a decent income that we could feel good about. Megan and I took turns running the shop and traveling to source products. 3 years ago, we added a tech-savvy staff member who built us a website and got us started with online sales. Lately, online shopping has been doing really well. Hey Megan, why did you decide to open a store with me in the first place? I once asked her about it. Even though we were close, I thought there had to be a reason she wanted to start a business with me.
Of course, it's because I felt we'd get along well personality-wise. But also, Chloe, you're great at drawing illustrations. Honestly, it's been a huge help.
The shop is covered with product descriptions and price tags featuring my illustrations. These are especially popular with foreign tourists. Even if they don't understand the language, the drawings help convey the message pretty well. I was happy that my hobby of drawing illustrations turned out to be useful. 4 years ago, I broke up with the man I was planning to marry. The reason for the breakup was that his parents mocked my family. My father disappeared when I was 8, and my younger brother was 5. My parents had originally eloped against their family's wishes. So when my father left, my mother couldn't rely on her family for support. She worked in nightlife to raise my younger brother and me. When I was in 8th grade, my father, who had disappeared, suddenly came back. I yelled at him.
"You're no father to me. Do you have any idea how much Mom has struggled because of you? Get out."
I couldn't forgive my father. Maybe he felt unwelcome because he disappeared again after about a week. I was angry at him for my mother's sake, but after he left, my mom looked incredibly sad. I understand a little better now. Even if you know a man is no good, even if you know you can't be happy with him, sometimes, when you love someone, there's just nothing you can do about it. Still, my father left us a small sum of money when he left again. And because of that, I was able to go to college. My mother, who wasn't in the best of health to begin with, quit her nightlife job and started working at a grocery store. I worked part-time during high school to help with household expenses, and my younger brother, Matt, said, "I'm not really into studying." And right after graduating high school, he started an apprenticeship as a carpenter under a master craftsman. There's nothing about our lives that we need to be ashamed of. I love my mom and younger brother dearly, but his parents said, a father who abandoned his family, a mother who worked in nightlife in the past, and a brother who only has a high school diploma. We don't want someone from such a background to marry our son. I was deeply shocked, but I also thought, there's no way I want people like that as my in-laws. He apologized, but when his parents said those things to me, he didn't stand up for me. That's when I knew it was over between us. My younger brother got married 2 years ago. His wife, who is 3 years younger than him, is completely smitten with him. It seems her parents had some objections because my brother only has a high school diploma, but she stood her ground, saying, "If I can't marry him, then I'll cut ties with you, Mom and Dad." My brother was already a skilled carpenter with a good income, so in the end, his wife's parents gave them their blessing. If I had truly wanted to marry my ex back then, would I have fought harder? No, he probably didn't want to go against his parents' objections just to marry me. For someone like me, who had become somewhat distrustful of people, my brother's marriage was a truly joyful event. Our family had always lived in an old 2-bedroom apartment, but when my brother got married, we decided to move. My brother and his wife invited me to live with them, but I decided to leave home. That said, I only moved to a studio apartment near both our old home and the shop in Brooklyn. Living alone was comfortable, but it did feel a little lonely. A year ago, a man who caught my attention appeared in my life. He was a semi-regular customer who came to the shop about once a month, always buying Southeast Asian tableware or textiles during his visit. One evening after the shop closed, Megan and I went to a nearby bar for drinks, and I spotted him sitting alone at the counter. At that point, I didn't know his name or age, but thanks to the drinks, we quickly became friendly. His name is Kyle. He's 33, 2 years older than me. He lives nearby and works for a construction company in downtown Manhattan. Apparently, his company handles infrastructure projects in Southeast Asia, so he often gets posted to places like Vietnam, the Philippines, and Indonesia.
My mom got hooked after I brought back some everyday items as souvenirs from those places. Now she's asking for placemats to match these plates or teaspoons to go with these cups.
That's how he discovered our shop. "You're such a good son." When I said that, he replied, "You think so? I really love and appreciate my parents. When I get married, I want to have the kind of marriage they have." And he smiled a little shyly. At that moment, I felt a mix of emotions, warmth, a bit of sadness, and a touch of envy. I must have shown those feelings on my face.
Did I say something weird?
Kyle asked. "No, I was just thinking what a wonderful family you have." And I guess I felt a little envious. Hearing this exchange, Megan later told me she thought, "These two are definitely going to start dating." And she was right. Kyle was incredibly kind and always listened to me with a calm nod. Kyle has 2 older brothers, both of whom are already married with children. About 3 months into our relationship, he invited me to his home. Just as he always described, his parents were wonderful people. They welcomed me warmly and even said, "Please take good care of our son." But at that point, I still hadn't told Kyle about my family circumstances. I couldn't bring myself to tell him because I kept worrying, what if the same thing happened again? But if something like that happened after I fell even more in love, I wouldn't be able to recover. If I was going to get hurt, it would be better to do it while the damage was still minimal. Maybe thinking this way means I've grown older. I opened up to Kyle about my family. I also told him about the heartbreak I went through 4 years ago. Kyle listened to my story in silence.
That's awful. You never know what life will throw at you, and having both parents isn't something you can always take for granted. That must have been really hard, Chloe.
When Kyle said that, I broke down crying. I realized I was more hurt than I had thought.
You've been through so much. From now on, I want you to be happy. I want to be the one to make you happy. Is that okay?
That's how he proposed to me. I was overjoyed. Truly, I was so happy that I nodded over and over again through my tears.
When I told my parents that I was going to marry you, Chloe, they were so happy. They said someone dependable like you is perfect for a spoiled kid like me. That's so mean, right?
He said that, pouting slightly. I felt so relieved to know his parents didn't oppose us, and I truly believed that Kyle and I could be happy together. But there was one problem. Kyle's company handles a lot of construction projects in Southeast Asia, and it had already been decided that he would be sent on a solo assignment to one of those countries. The term would be about 2 years. We had 3 choices. Wait for him to return and get married after that, get married and move with him, or get married and stay in the US while waiting for him to come back. After much deliberation, I chose to get married and wait for Kyle to return while staying in the US. Megan told me, "Don't worry about the shop, but I really enjoy my work." Plus, Kyle said he'd come back every 2 months, and I could also visit him at his assignment. The truth is, I've traveled to Southeast Asia many times to source products for the shop, but I always struggle with the food there. It just doesn't suit me. It seems my body just doesn't agree with cilantro and similar herbs. I can enjoy myself for a few days, but living there long term would be tough.
I heard that if you're genetically predisposed to dislike cilantro, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to enjoy it. Such a shame. It's so good.
Kyle said with a laugh, forgiving my pickiness. And so, we got married. Even though it became a long-distance marriage, I was happy. Thanks to the internet, we could have video calls, so it didn't feel all that lonely. But I was disappointed that I couldn't spend our first Christmas as a married couple with Kyle. I really wanted to spend our first Christmas together. He'll be back for New Year's, but Christmas isn't possible. As I muttered that while preparing the shop to open, Megan teased me, saying, "Oh, Chloe, I didn't know you were such a romantic. Why not surprise him? Christmas flights are expensive, and it's tough if you don't book early though." But I was immediately on board with the idea. The holiday season is our busiest time, but Megan said, "You can make it up to me later. And while you're at it, pick up some good merchandise if you find any," happily sending me off. Around noon on Christmas Eve, December 24th, I arrived at the airport, surrounded by the festive Christmas atmosphere, and I couldn't help but feel excited. I thought about having dinner at a nice restaurant, but maybe it's impossible without a reservation. Should I prepare a homemade dinner at Kyle's place instead? I'll grab a good bottle of wine. As I was thinking about this and browsing the market, I suddenly spotted Kyle about 20 meters ahead. Not wanting to ruin the surprise by running into him here, I quickly wrapped my scarf around half my face and pretended to browse for groceries. It seemed Kyle wasn't alone. He was shopping and chatting cheerfully with a young woman. I saw Kyle put his arm around the girl's shoulders and pull her close. and I felt the blood drain from my face. What's going on? The girl looked like she was in her early 20s, maybe even a teenager. Judging by her Southeast Asian features and fashion, she seemed to be a local. Blending into the crowd, I decided to follow them. I had been to this country twice before to visit Kyle and already knew where his apartment was. To my disbelief, the two of them entered Kyle's apartment. They were laughing happily as they carried the groceries they had bought.
Let's make love all night tonight.
No, it's not good for the baby.
I heard them exchanging these words in the local language, and my vision went black. It's ironic that I had studied this language to avoid communication issues during my buying trips, only for it to prove useful in such a cruel way. Before I knew it, I was at the airport, waiting for a standby seat on a flight, and I returned to the US that same day. A new personal record for the shortest overseas stay.
Oh, Chloe? What's wrong? What happened to the surprise?
Megan, who was closing up the shop, immediately noticed that something was off and looked at me with concern. In a way, it was the most shocking surprise ever. As I broke into tears, Megan pulled me into the back office of the shop, which also serves as a break room, and made me a warm cup of tea.
Are you saying he has a local wife?
A local wife. I had heard about women in Southeast Asian countries who take care of wealthy foreign businessmen, making a living by being their companions. But she's pregnant.
Did you confirm that?
No, I didn't. But what am I supposed to do? At that moment, barging into Kyle's apartment and demanding an explanation was something I just couldn't bring myself to do. I couldn't believe that the kind, gentle Kyle had betrayed me.
First of all, you need to confirm what's going on. Didn't he say he'd be back for New Year's? Talk to him properly then. If you feel unsure, I can be there with you.
Thanks, Megan. But it's okay. I'll make sure to talk to him on my own. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding, and once I heard the full story, everything would turn out to be fine. I truly hope that was the case.
Isn't the shop super busy over the holidays? Don't push yourself too hard. I'll come back after the first few days of January.
That was the message I got from Kyle. It was written in his usual gentle tone. My reply was just one word. Okay. Kyle probably assumed I was busy and left it at that. When the new year came, Kyle tried to video call me, but I ignored it. I didn't trust myself to see his face or hear his voice without saying something I might regret. It might have been the worst holiday season of my life. Thankfully, the shop was so busy that it kept my mind occupied. At night, Megan would either come over to my place or invite me to hers, which helped ease my emotions. I was truly grateful for her friendship. Maybe Megan felt responsible for suggesting the surprise in the first place.
Kyle, he didn't seem like the kind of guy who would cheat.
That's what Megan said, and I had thought the same. Kyle returned on the 4th. The shop was closed for the next 3 days. I didn't prepare a full course meal, but I cooked a variety of dishes and waited for him.
I'm home. Well, Chloe, I need to talk to you.
The moment he stepped into the room from the front door, without even taking off his coat, he spoke with a serious expression. Okay, what is it?
I want a divorce. I'm going to have a child.
With those words, he placed the divorce papers on the table. Since Christmas Eve, I had thought about this moment countless times. I had considered everything from the possibility of mishearing or misunderstanding to the worst case scenario. In the end, reality turned out to be that worst case scenario. I had thought about it so much that, to my own surprise, I was eerily calm. Oh, really? Is that so? You know, I went to your apartment on Christmas Eve, the 24th.
What?
I saw you shopping with a young girl, looking all chummy, and then the two of you went into your apartment together.
That was.
She's the one, isn't she? She looked really young.
She's 20. She's been working to support her family since she was 16. Her father isn't around, her mother is sickly, and she has younger siblings.
And what exactly are you trying to tell me by saying all this? Are you asking me to forgive you because she's in such a tragic situation?
What? No, that's not.
Oh, let me guess. You said something like, "You've been through so much. From now on, I want you to be happy. I want to make you happy." Didn't you? Just like you said to me.
Wait, how do you?
Kyle was at a loss for words. It seemed I had hit the nail on the head. You're kind, aren't you? You can't turn a blind eye to unhappy women. Is that why you married me? Because I looked like one of them?
That's not.
So now that you found someone who's even unhappier than I am, you're just switching to her?
That's not what I.
That's not kindness at all. Being looked down on because of my family background is painful. But being pitied and treated like someone to feel sorry for is something I can't tolerate. Tears threatened to spill, but I bit my lip, determined not to cry out of sheer frustration. Get out.
What?
I don't want to see your face anymore. I'll take care of filing the divorce papers. When I said that firmly, Kyle said, "I'm sorry," before leaving the apartment. 3 hours later, I got a call from Kyle's mom. It seemed he had gone back to his parents' house and told them everything.
This is entirely my son's fault. We were so happy to have Chloe as part of our family. This is truly heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
Kyle's mom went on to explain that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. She told me how Kyle had once let a runaway girl stay at his house, only to have her steal a large amount of money and valuables. She also mentioned how he had been deceived by women with tragic sob stories, who had swindled him out of a significant amount of money.
We finally felt reassured when he married someone as reliable as you, Chloe.
That's what Kyle's mom said. She also promised that I would be properly compensated for alimony. His parents were truly kind and wonderful people. I felt both disappointed and sorry for them. When Megan heard that Kyle had returned, she called me. When I told her that it seemed I was getting divorced, she rushed over out of concern. After I shared what Kyle's mom had told me, Megan said,
I see. In poor rural areas of Southeast Asia, there are young people who move to cities to work as teenagers to support their families back home.
I could imagine how hard that must be. Compared to that, my life was probably far happier. But being betrayed for such a reason was still unbearable.
No offense, Chloe, but some men are just drawn to women who seem unhappy. They want to be the ones to make them happy.
Oh, he said that to me when he proposed. I gave a bitter smile as I said that, and Megan sighed deeply before responding.
Maybe it's that whole "I want to be your hero" thing. He's probably not a bad person, but he's definitely a troublesome guy.
You're right. There are so many people in the world with unfortunate circumstances. If he's so eager to save them, he should just become a politician or something. As I said that loudly, feeling angrier by the moment, I actually started to feel much better. After that, with Megan's support, I went and filed the divorce papers immediately. A week later, I got a call from Kyle.
Chloe, please help me. I was wrong.
His panicked voice caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but ask, "What? What's going on?"
The moment the wedding was announced, her parents, her uncles, their kids, I don't even know all their names, dozens of them showed up and took money from me.
What? What do you mean? Robbery?
No, not exactly. They said they were struggling and needed help. Since I'm marrying her and becoming family, it's only natural for me to support them.
Megan had told me a little about this. In that tropical country, known for its laid-back culture, there are apparently many people who aren't very industrious. And when there's a hard-working breadwinner in the family, it's common for relatives to come asking for money as if it's their right.
I can handle supporting her parents and her younger siblings, but
The cost of living there is significantly lower, about 1/3 of what it is in the US, and Kyle earns a pretty high salary. Even so, it would be unbearable to have an entire extended family constantly asking him for money. That sounds tough. But since you chose to marry into her family, you'd better do your best to make everyone happy. I did feel a little sorry for him, but I had no intention of sympathizing.
Anne, she has a 2-year-old child.
What? I thought back to the face of the woman Kyle was marrying, someone I had only seen once. She had such a youthful appearance that she could easily pass for a teenager. She had been raising a small child, working to support her family, and yet still managed to snag a naive and overly kind man like Kyle. What a cunning and strong woman she must be. I felt more moved than angry. Remarrying someone with a child is totally normal. You should include the kid and make them happy too. I said that and hung up the phone. I could hear Kyle shouting, "Wait, don't hang up," but I ignored it. Shortly after, alimony from Kyle's parents was deposited into my account. Then, one day, I got a call from my mom. She told me that she had been contacted by my father, who had been missing for a long time, and that he was now hospitalized. What? He's been gone all this time, and now he's coming to you because he's sick? Just ignore him, Mom. Even though I said that, she didn't listen at all and told me to visit him. So I decided that if I was going, I'd use the chance to give him a piece of my mind. When I got to the hospital, I was shocked to find that my dad's room was the most expensive private suite in the entire place. How? My mom was sitting next to his bed, holding his hand with a gentle expression on her face.
Oh, Chloe, you came. I'm sorry for everything I've put you through all these years.
The father I hadn't seen in ages looked his age, worn down and noticeably thinner, probably from his illness. It is too late for an apology. Why are you in such an expensive room? Did you win the lottery or something? I couldn't help but focus on where the money was coming from rather than his health, which made me feel like a heartless daughter. According to him, he left the family in the first place because he had dreams he wanted to chase. My father was a completely unsuccessful musician. Even though he married my mom when she got pregnant with me, he couldn't let go of his dreams. He abandoned his wife and kids and left home. He's a complete failure. In the end, he gave up on his music dreams and started working in nightlife, which turned out to be somewhat successful for him. When I was in middle school, he came back, hoping to reconcile with us, but I threw him out. No, I didn't actually throw him out. I just glared at him with a cold stare every day. But in his mind, that's probably how he remembers it. At that time, he did leave a decent amount of money, and thanks to that, I was able to go to college. After that, my father went through various ups and downs and eventually managed to run 3 bars in a bustling nightlife district. Then, a few years ago, he struck it rich by investing in cryptocurrency, thanks to a tip from one of his customers.
Just when I thought I could finally make amends to your mom and you kids, I ended up collapsing.
Hearing him say that with such regret, I didn't know how to respond.
Making amends. You don't need to. Just having you back is enough for me.
My mom said, holding his hand with tears in her eyes, looking genuinely happy. I realized there was no place for me to intervene. Some men want to save unhappy women, and some women can't let go of men who are hopelessly flawed. It might seem foolish from an outsider's perspective, but it's the life they've chosen. Later, my father bought a house for my mom and my brother's family, and now, as if nothing had ever happened, the 4 of them live happily together. They've prepared a room for you, Chloe, so come back anytime, they told me, but I used my divorce settlement to move into a new pet-friendly apartment instead. Megan took me to a pet adoption event, and I ended up bringing home a long-haired orange tabby mix I fell in love with at first sight.
Cats are amazing. As long as I have my shop and my cats, that's all I need to be happy.
She lives with 3 cats herself.
By the way, isn't your ex-husband's overseas assignment wrapping up soon? Do you think he'll stay there or come back to US?
Wow, you remembered that well. I haven't heard from him since then, and honestly, I couldn't care less. Whether he decides to stay abroad and settle down or escape his extended family and return to US, it's none of my business. A few days after having that conversation with Megan, I got a call from Kyle for the first time in a while.
I came back yesterday. Actually, I broke up with her.
Oh, I'm surprised she let go of a high-income guy like you. I couldn't help but think it was odd for someone to give up such a catch.
Well, the baby that was born, it wasn't mine.
What? Apparently, the baby had jet black hair and didn't have even a hint of American heritage in their features. And yet,
When I offered to pay alimony, she was happy to part ways with me.
wait a second. Why are you paying alimony? If anything, you're the one who should be getting compensation.
It's fine. If it helps her, her child, and her family live a little easier, then I'm okay with it.
You've got to be kidding me. He's nothing more than a gullible pushover. I was completely dumbfounded.
I truly regret what I did to you, Chloe. So, I was wondering, could we get back together? My parents still really like you, and this time, I want to be the one to make you happy.
Excuse me? What are you even talking about? Listen, I'm not your beloved, unhappy woman anymore. Go find someone else. I said that and hung up the phone. Every now and then, I still get whiny messages from Kyle. Apparently, Kyle had given most of his salary, plus nearly all his savings, to her and her relatives. On top of that, he borrowed money from his parents to pay the alimony for their breakup. His parents and both of his brothers were reportedly fed up with him, and now he's living at home, feeling like an outcast, while paying back the money he borrowed from his parents. Causing trouble for your own parents and siblings just to help an unhappy woman is completely backwards. If you're so eager to help people, why don't you try volunteering instead? When I sent him that reply, A little while later, Kyle quit his job at the construction company and ended up taking a position in social work. He's not a bad person. I know that. Maybe he's found his calling, or maybe this will teach him a lesson about his naivete. When I visit my parents, they both greet me warmly.
Your father and I went on a trip together last month. Your dad has started playing the guitar again. He even sings for me.
My mom says this with such a happy expression. I don't think I could ever forgive a hopeless man and wait for him endlessly. Even so, seeing how happy my mom is makes me think maybe this kind of choice is valid too. Whether it's out of guilt or not, my dad decided to invest, and we're opening a second location of our imported goods store. And I'm the manager. Megan once said that having work and her cats was enough to make her happy, and I get that now. But if I ever get married again in the future, I want to marry someone who says, "Let's be happy together," rather than someone who says, "I want to make you happy." As I said that while preparing for the opening of the new store, Megan laughed and said, "Chloe, you're such a romantic after all." Megan once said that having work and her cats was enough to make her happy. But I'd like to add one correction. Having work, cats, friends, and family is enough to be truly happy. Life is still full of possibilities. For now, I'll focus on giving my all to my work.